with Loretta Ryan and Joel Spreadborough.
On 612 ABC Radio Brisbane.
It's 20 to 8. Are you feeling satisfied that the Crisafulli government's crackdown on youth crime is working after figures released by the Premier yesterday? David Crisafulli says they're on the right track, according to that police data on victims of crime.
Across Queensland, victim numbers have fallen by 5.7%. It's been particularly satisfying in those three areas dominated by youth criminals. Robbery is down 13.2%, break-and-enters are down 12%, stolen cars are down 6.4%.
Premier David Crisafulli there. Now, the Premier has acknowledged that the figures he has provided are different to those published annually by the Australian Bureau of Statistics. This is because they don't include the category of other thefts, which the Premier suggests could relate to victimless crimes such as theft and shoplifting. The Labor opposition has accused the Premier of cherry-picking the data. So can we be satisfied with the numbers? Dr Terry Goldsworthy is Associate Professor in Criminology at Bond University. Dr Goldsworthy, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
What are your thoughts on the numbers the Premier has released?
Well, look, I guess there was a good news story there for the government. I mean, my examination of the crime data shows that the crime rate in Queensland has decreased overall by about 2%. But the problem we've got is that the message has been lost in the massaging of the message. So yesterday we saw limited data come out, a different data set than the ABS figures that he made his promise to make or break his career on. And I think people are sceptical when you start cherry-picking out offences. I mean, other theft has victims attached to it. I mean, to say it doesn't is simply nonsensical. I mean, the only time you don't have a victim attached to an offence is when it's a Crown offence or a Rex or Regina offence. Or, for instance, in stealings, you may have offences where it's, stole from persons unknown because you can't identify the owner. Now, in 28 years of policing, I could count on one hand the amount of times I charged someone with stealing from a person unknown. So there are victims attached to those offences. To say there isn't is just incorrect. So they should have been included in your mind? Yes, I think they should have. I mean, and look, we've seen this happen before. Back in 2014, the then LNP government claimed a 10% reduction in crime, in the crime rate in Queensland. Yet when myself and other criminologists looked at it, what had happened is there's three categories of crime. There's crime against a person, crime against property, and then other offences. And they had discounted and excluded the other offence categories to get the 10%. So, you just can't cherry pick the data. I mean, you've got to include all the data so you're comparing apples with apples. I mean, ultimately, the Premier in the Leaders' Debate promised that he would beat the ABS victim numbers. That is the figure that people will be looking at to compare his performance. I mean, you can lead out all types of other data. It's irrelevant to that promise. Now, whether you choose to ignore that, that's up to people individually. But certainly I think there was, some positive signs in terms of crime going down, even though we're still at a 20-year crime rate high. And that was lost in the messaging yesterday because people immediately focused on what wasn't being released. Dr Terry Goldsworthy, an Associate Professor in Criminology at Bond University, joining you, 612 ABC Brisbane, 7:45. We're looking at the figures, of course, the Premier released, and numbers in the first 6 months of 2025 compared to the same time last year, Terry. Around what you're saying, is that a long enough period to be able to say these tougher laws are proving effective? Yeah, look, I don't think you can say there's any causal connection between the adult time laws and this crime reduction. And one of the indicators of that is the fact that we know that youth crime was already declining in 23-24. So for the financial year 23-24, we know that there was a 5% reduction in youth offenders. So that takes in the last 6 months or so of the Labor government. So that crime is already declining. So, that was well before the adult crime laws came in. I think my opinion of those laws that they will really only have an effect in terms of high-level crimes such as murder, where we're now seeing a number of youth offenders are going to be exposed to mandatory life imprisonment. Other than that, I don't think we'll see much change in the sentencing processes of judges. They still have discretion. in terms of whether they sentence someone to jail or not. They still have access to a conditional release order, which means that the person will be sentenced but never spends a day in jail. They walk straight out of court. The adult time laws did not remove those discretionary items from judges.
So should that be removed, or can it be?
Well, I think that there's a problem there, and the government realised that when they put in the adult time laws, is that there's no capacity to house, the youth offenders if they all go to jail. I mean, they opened up a new 76-bed facility up at Toowoomba, I think, a couple of months ago. So they've left that in there. They've left the conditional release orders in there. And if you look at the data from the Queensland Sentencing Council, a large proportion of youth offenders get conditional release orders. And they've also changed the Youth Justice Act, where previously youth offenders had to serve 70% of their sentence. They've removed that requirement now, and judges can set whatever percentage level they want. So I'd imagine judges will set a lower percentage level of the amount of their sentence that has to be served.
So that defeats the whole purpose of adult crime, adult time, and making Queensland safer.
Well, I think it's problematic. I mean, that detail was included in the explanatory notes for the bill. And what it does is, I guess, allow a pressure release or a pressure valve release that if you're getting suddenly the judges decide to sentence everyone to jail, which just simply won't happen. There's a release, in fact, that they can get them to serve a far smaller proportion of their sentence, and they can get those conditional release orders. So, yes, I guess, in answer to your question, if you were serious about, OK, we're going to make these youth offenders go to jail for their offences, whether you think that's a good idea or not, then to achieve that purpose, you would have had to remove conditional release orders, and you would have had to leave the 70%, threshold of serving their sentence there as well.
And recapping these timelines, Dr Terry Goldsworthy, Associate Professor in Criminology at Bond University. When do you think we should be looking at the figure again, all things considered, to get a more accurate picture?
Look, I think you'd need at least 12 months, 2 years to look and see whether there's any correlation or, causal connection. So, correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation. So you may have a crime reduction at the same time these laws were brought in. It doesn't mean they've caused a reduction. So you would need to look at the data very closely to see, did those laws have any effect in terms of reducing the crime numbers? I mean, he was talking yesterday about overall crime, not youth crime. So these laws, we've got to remember, are only aimed at youth offenders, which make up about 17.5% of our offenders in Queensland. So, the other crime is also important, because if that's going down, then you can definitely say it's got nothing to do with adult crime, adult time laws.
Well, Shane on the text line says, how about we give a relatively new government a go? At least they're trying to do something. Dr Terry Goldsworthy, thanks for talking to us.
No worries, thanks.
Dr Goldsworthy is Associate Professor in Criminology.